Is that better? I keep forgetting this stupid thing does this. I'll do it this way. So we'll go back really quick. The targets that the United States and the British Protectorate in Palestine have chosen. This is all I've covered anyway, so a couple minutes won't hurt anything. I guess I better say Mahe and Favour, nothing missing, nothing broken, nothing absent from your lives that are needed, since that probably was all staticky too. They've hit 6 elementary schools. They've hit the National Emergency Response Center. That's for floods. Hey, Angel. It sounds like they hit the National Emergency Response Center. That's for like floods and earthquakes and landslides. It's what it is. Fire and ambulance services all over the place. Libraries. Well, that's all right. If you can hear me, we're good. I keep forgetting my mic does some weird things. They've hit libraries. They hit UNESCO sites, World Heritage sites. They've hit historic buildings. They've hit parks and stadiums. They hit soccer fields. Now, the soccer fields are pretty ironic. I could see them from the satellite images and knew they were soccer fields. They hit the National News Center multiple times. It's for public communications and emergencies. That is actually a violation of the United Nations Charter and war conventions. But anyway, they've hit multiple hospitals. Last number I had was they hit 5 separate hospitals. They're also hitting emergency medical facilities and specialized facilities. One of the facilities they hit was a dialysis center. What kind of military target is that? They've hit known food warehouses. Now, some of those food warehouses apparently were for like grocery stores, but the other one was the Muslim charities. What a target. Muslim charities food warehouses. Okay, so now back to Hezbollah. Hezbollah is wiping out the IDF. The IDF decided that they would do a ground invasion of Lebanon. They were blowing up residential areas. They attacked Beirut again. The explosions in Beirut were just horrible and the damage is terrible. Of course, it was all civilian structure. Talking about IDF hitting Beirut. It was all civilian structure. But Hezbollah has been taking it to the IDF on the ground and in Haifa and a few other places as well. The ground invasion of Lebanon is not going very well. They actually had to go through Syria, literally up through Syria and back down to rescue some of their units that were pinned down. And they didn't really rescue them. They just kind of like recovered them. They took 2 tanks in, got them blown up, had to take 4 more and got them blown up too. The problem is in Lebanon, the IDF is basically targeting nothing but civilians. They're literally killing. Oh, by the way, the ground invasion of Lebanon is a war crime. But they're killing all the civilians that they choose and blowing up whole civilian neighborhoods is also a war crime. I'm trying to figure out. There was something else I was going to tell you about that. Okay, now something that I'm going to bring up here and I'll talk about it later is that Iran, in multiple statements from multiple people, have been preparing for this invasion by the United States and the little protectorate in Palestine since the invasion of Iraq in 2001. All right, 2001, 2003, that area. So that means that for 23 to 25 years they've been preparing this, and even more since our good friend Cheney, the chump that worked for George Bush in 2005, said that Iran would have to be next. Don't forget, we also have General Wesley Clark that came out and said that there were 7 nations that were on the list, and Iran was one of them. They have evacuation zones for the people and military equipment and personnel. I have to reiterate this because they are still spewing this male bovine excrement. You know, I could say it in Irish. Would it sound better if I said it in Irish? Bullshit. Bullshit. They're spreading this bullshit everywhere. Anyway, there was 3,117 people killed during the riots that were created by Mossad and CIA assets on the ground, admitted to by Pompeo and the British Protectorate's Mossad operations spokesman. Okay. Most of the people who were killed because the inciters, the agents on the ground, were hiding in the crowds and shooting at police and ambulance service people and emergency service people. What a way to fight. Hide behind civilians that have no idea what you're doing and get them killed too, because police are going to defend themselves. Military people are going to defend themselves. That's what they were counting on. They were hoping that hiding in the crowd and getting some people in the crowd killed would start. Okay, next we go on to the next thing. Destruction of radar, right? The destruction of the radar has reduced the warning time for incoming missiles and drones from what once was 10 to 20 minutes. Now, 10 to 20 minutes, you can get your butt down the road and get yourself into a shelter or in a basement or something, right? It has been reduced. The warning time has been reduced from 10 to 20 minutes. Now, 10, that's a fast mover. 5 even. But anyway, it has been reduced from 10 to 20 minute average warning time to 10 to 30 seconds. If you're in a space and the warning sirens sound and you have 10 to 30 seconds, you could probably look up and see it coming at that point, right? It's what's that old thing? You look up, you see it coming, you bend over and kiss your butt goodbye. That's the whole region at this point. The northern radar being gone, the northern radars being gone, eliminate the Ukraine defense in part. All right, because those two northern radars were being used by Ukraine for warning. It also affects targeting, by the way, for the Ukrainians. I don't know how they were doing it. Now let's go back to see what's going on in Iran. I gave you the target list. Let's go back to Serbia and Yugoslavia. The little British protectorate wasn't involved in that, right? But Serbia, Yugoslavia, and a lot of the other places that NATO went in under orders from Washington, D.C., got the same treatment. They couldn't hit the military targets, so they killed unarmed women, men, and children, and elders. What's the common factor? I'm going to repeat this again later when I talk about something else. The Zionists that were in control. Okay, what happens when AI, artificial intelligence, is used for targeting? Well, first of all, if you've not heard my AI programs, I did a whole series called AI, right? And I talked about what AI actually is today. Artificial intelligence today is not artificial intelligence. There's no freaking intelligence to it, okay? I don't know how many times I have to say this, probably until they quit propaganda the guys in the public to believe a lie, as usual. There is no such thing as artificial intelligence, as in it operates on its own, okay? No, we do not have an artificial intelligence. What we have are preset program parameters and algorithms. That would be me sitting down at a computer and saying, this is what I want. And then the machine makes it happen. Now, can the machine solve other problems? Yes, but that's the problem. The problem is if I tell that machine I want something done, Are the Men in Black real? I did a whole podcast talking about the Men in Black. It's connected to it's the podcast that I did that talks about the X-Files and something Peak that used to be on TV, right? You thought Ozzy was dead. I'll tell you what, I'm an old rock and roller. I don't know if y'all know that. Some of you all probably don't know I do music. But I'm an old rock and roller. But yes, Men in Black are real. The original one was actually an FBI agent. It happened after the boomerang sighting. By the way, he didn't see saucers. He saw a boomerang, a flying wing. It was made by the Horton brothers. I didn't really want to get into that stuff. I'll tell you what, I'm going to do a show tonight that is Conversations with Raven, and I'm going to talk about walk-ins. And I'm also going to talk about the Order of the Hidden Valley Mystics and a couple other things. I plan on going live at 9 o'clock my time, which is Eastern Standard Time, U.S. So if you want to bring up stuff like that, Men in Black and things like that, I'd be more than glad to answer questions about stuff like that there. Here, I want to stay on Iran and other connections, okay? But anyway, so what they're doing is they're using an AI program. They've had it under different names. But here's the thing, it's not really artificial intelligence. That is not what we have. What we have is preset program parameters and algorithms. And it's whoever sets the program, whoever sets the algorithms, right? So if I set the algorithm and I say, well, I want this many people dead, it's going to find them. Okay? Ozzy. That's cool. Well, my hair, this is my rock and roll hair, guys. I got up this morning and I got in the shower, and this is what my hair will do. And it turns black, except you can still see the silver at the bottom where the light shines through it. But when it's wet and oiled for, like, when I do performances or whatever, or when I go out, it'll stay black, which is really funny because most of the time it's black. Or most of the time it's kind of like silver. And I got silver, blonde, red, white, and black. But when I get it wet, the black takes over. It's really funny. Anyway, I appreciate all you joining me, by the way. Favour. But anyway, so these preset program parameters are, have you all heard of Palantir and its Gotham platform? The one that they're trying to sign on for surveillance and taking care of things here in the United States for the civilians. Just saying. Cigarette. I got one in my hand that I'm not even smoking. Anyway, so that might have been a different kind of compliment too. Thank you, if that's what it was. But anyway, so what them blaming AI for the decisions is it allows them to have one step off of responsibility. The AI program did it. We didn't. That's bullshit. Absolute male bovine excrement. And I'll tell you why. Because they're the ones that chose how the program was going to be set. What parameters and what algorithms were going to be used. Well, obviously, they're not very good algorithms if you're killing, well, unless you're doing it intentionally, right? Unless you're intentionally killing every civilian that you possibly can and destroying everything that is in violation of international law and war powers conventions. Unless you're doing it on purpose, you really aren't very good programmers. But considering that they have done it, well, they're working on autonomous drones right now. As a matter of fact, some of them that are flying now are autonomous. Once they're programmed, they do what they do. Seek out a target and do it yourself, which I'll get to that too, right? The targeting is being done by, see, what makes a difference? If the autonomous drone isn't autonomous, it just takes off and follows the programming it's given. When the AI is doing the targeting, here's the first part. The AI is doing the targeting based on the program parameters that it was given. If it says just kill people, it kills people. And here's the other thing. Who's putting in the odds? Okay, so there's a gathering. What are the odds one of our targets going to be there? Who's setting this? So you got 1,000 people at worship service, and one of those people might be military. So those 1,000 people are a valid target. That's how this program is working, you all. We've proven it over and over. Lavender, for example, the one that the IDF was using in Gaza. Lavender just said, well, there's probably one person that we want to kill in that crowd. There's 15,000 people in that crowd. So then it figures out how many per 1,000. And it says it's justified to kill 15,000 people to get 5. That's what I was just talking about. It's called the Lavender Project by Palantir. It's part of the Gotham, of all things, Gotham platform, right? So what they did is they programmed this thing to think in Gaza that if there were 5,000 people gathered for worship, in those 5,000 people, there was probably 5 targets. So it was okay to kill the 5,000 people because it would get the 5 targets they wanted. That's the kind of people we're dealing with. But what people aren't getting is, even though they're calling this AI, these are programmed. I look like a clown. I don't have any makeup on. Sorry. Anyway, I love hecklers. If I had a nose that honked, I'd honk it at you and then flip you off. Anyway, I did flip him off. I love hecklers. I did comedy, stand-up comedy from 94 to 2006, and hecklers were one of my favorite things because they just make themselves look stupid. Anyway, but the problem is they take up time that everybody else should be enjoying. So here's what we do. I'm not going to do anything to them, but if you don't want to hear people like that, just block them. Anyway, so the AI programs are being set by other people, and we know for one instance in Lebanon, they were willing to kill 10,000 people to get 2. That's what they're programming. So they're liable for the war crimes, not the AI. The AI is making its own decisions in some cases, but it's making decisions based on what they wanted it to do. Okay. Many people are finally comparing the British protectorate in Palestine and the United States actions today and in Gaza and in Lebanon and in Syria to Dresden and the German cities at the end of World War II. Well, didn't I just talk about this the other day? But they're still not making the connection to the people who were behind what happened to Germany at the end of World War II. And I do need to point out, at the point that they firebombed Dresden and the other cities in Germany, Germany had already lost the war. Okay? There was no need to go in there and firebomb. Literally, they carpet bombed whole cities, just in strafe after strafe after strafe. I'll say again, if you haven't seen it, there's a documentary. You probably have to go to BitChute to find it, but it's called Hellstorm. And Hellstorm, the documentary. That's the title. But what they did at the end of World War II, the conflict with the war with Germany, is the war was pretty much over with. I mean, it was pretty much a done deal. And to add insult to injury and to make them pay the ultimate penalty, they picked all the big cities in Germany, and Dresden's the most famous, but they firebombed it. They literally strafed them, carpet bombed them with fire, incendiaries and bombs, okay, mixed. And Hellstorm is a good description. And that's what they did. They've done to Gaza. They're doing it to any country around the British protectorate in Palestine. That's what they're doing. But they've made the connections to Dresden and the cities in Germany. And, a lot of people don't realize it. They did it to cities in France, too, where there were German populations. You remember, there was a line there, Germans over here, French here, but there were French Germans. Now, they were loyal to France, not Germany, which makes the crime even worse. But there's I think 12 cities in France that had been, they're mixed, French, German, and they bombed them too, even though they were loyal to the French. But here's the thing that they're still not connecting. Both the events today, you're the last representative of Satan on earth. That's funny. But here's the thing that they're not connecting. Those fire bombings and that horrific stuff that was done at the tail end of World War II in Europe was ordered by the Zionists that were controlling London and Washington, D.C. Do you know it was the Zionists in London and New York City that financed, educated, and put in place Stalin and Lenin? Do you know that Stalin and Lenin is not their names? They're actually Ashkenazis, Khazars, Zionists. All right, next page. Troops. We don't have enough. Equipment. Nope, we don't have enough. Supply line. Nope, not enough equipment or logistics to get it there. They're talking about putting troops in Iran. Can't help. Can't help. Just can't help. Where are they going to land? There's no safe zone. There's no staging area, and there's no way to create a demilitarized zone for people to land. I do agree. It's a USA. It's a British protectorate in Palestine war, not ours. Problem is, Washington D.C. is full of Zionist zealots, not Americans. Most of them's first loyalty is to that British protectorate in Palestine. And as long as it's been that way for a long time. But the problem that we have is those people aren't listening to the rest of the population, who right now it's about 83% are against this. When you have religious zealotry, which I'm going to get to later, I've got that to cover today. When you get to religious zealotry, common sense and loyalty to nation doesn't matter. It's an overriding arc. That's the reason why back in the day, people were so worried about Catholics coming into the United States, because Catholics' first loyalty is to the Pope. Well, Pope, Zionist, British protectorate makes no difference. The popes are Habsburgs. Same people. But the United States, as of this point, when you take all the bases, all the equipment, and everything else that has happened, I'm not talking about human lives. I'm talking about physical equipment, right? Hey, y'all. Thanks for joining. I just hope we don't use nukes too, because that little British protectorate in Palestine, please notice I'm not going to call that what most people do. That little British protectorate in Palestine is not Israel. And I'll explain that here in a little bit too. But I hope we don't use nukes either, although that British protectorate in Palestine has used it to leverage people into assisting or into kowtowing and not helping Iran. And they're still threatening to do it if they reach a certain point of damage that they cannot take anymore, or if they know that they're going to lose. And I'm telling you right now, all them Arab states better understand that if they launch, it's not just going to be at Iran. I've heard what they've said. Anyway, so the United States at this point in time has taken, I'm trying to see comments too, but they're teeny tiny. Anyway, so the United States, as of right now, has taken more damage to our, I'm stupid or lying, you need to go find out. See, I'm dealing with facts and knowledge. You're dealing with beliefs. Facts and knowledge outweigh beliefs all the time, because beliefs are filled with lies. Those three letters in the middle are L-I-E. That's the reason why beliefs are so dangerous, whether they be religious, political, or social. If you don't know, go find out, instead of calling me stupid or lying. I have 23 books in print. I have 2 master's degrees and a doctorate. I also served overseas chasing down atomic, biological, and chemical weapons for 18 and a half years. So if you want to be a heckler, go heckle a comedian, not somebody who has more intelligence, more experience, and more knowledge than yourself. Anyway, so the United States has taken more damage in the last week than we have since we got hit in Pearl Harbor. How is that for freaking awesome? It's terrible. Why? Because of all the damn soldiers and contractors and civilians that are being killed. Everybody said, oh, the United States is taking more damage than it has in history since Pearl Harbor. And they're acting like that's a great thing. You're 11 times smarter than me with Futards as a name. I'll tell you what, brother. I've got 23 books in print. I can write music and perform it. I've got two masters and a doctorate. I can take weapons apart. I can handle chemical and biological weapons. Okay? And since you will not shut up, I guess I am going to have to make you go away. I gave you one chance. It's not that I don't like you. It's not that I hate you. It's that when you are going to waste everybody else's time just to be a dick, we don't have time for dicks unless we are female and want one. And I'm not a female, and I don't need one. I will put up with so much, but when they just keep messing, Chevy Silverado, I like the old ones. I like the old Chevys. I like the old 250s customs, or what was it, 150, 250 customs built back in the 70s. Man, they were good trucks. But anyway, so people are talking about how great it is the United States has taken. Look at all these people coming out of the. Look at all these people coming out. See, here's the problem. If I sit here and debate him and waste all of my time, then the people who actually want to hear what I have to say don't get to hear it. So, bye. I don't mind doing that, y'all, because if they're going to keep wasting my time and yours, and here's the other thing. If you guys are trying to ask me a question in the chat, I can't see it if they just keep filling it up. Right? I can't answer your questions if they just keep filling it up with garbage, which is what they want to do. You got to figure that was either a 5-cent army, right? It was either a 5-cent army or it was, Mossad, CIA paid, which there's a lot of them. I talked about this a long time ago. At one time, the IDF had 5,000 people. Their sole job, what they got paid to do, was go online and do that stuff, interrupt conversations, and do propaganda. The same thing too with the Chinese. For a long time, we called them the 5-cent army. We estimated at one time they had 10,000. Have you seen some of them bays that they have today? They got a bay that one person is controlling from a laptop that has 15,000 accounts that they're dealing with. It's crazy. And then we're not even including the United States and European nations that do the same thing. I found out probably 2018 maybe that the United States had farms that they were paying that some of them individual sections had 100,000 accounts. And their sole purpose was to go out and propagandize and to interrupt streams like this. So, what am I talking about? Well, you can come back and you can go back and listen to it from the beginning. But I'm talking about the Middle East, of course. Okay, so the next thing. The United States has taken more damage since the time of we're going to go back to where I was at. I make notes. Then the attack in Pearl Harbor. And some people are like, but here's my thing. It's nuts. I mean, it's absolutely nuts. Because if we've taken that much damage, think about how many people we've lost. Military, civilian, and contractor. And whether you like spooks or not, like CIA and Mossad, forget Mossad, they're not my people. Forget CIA, they're not my people. CIA hasn't been Americans' people for a long time. They weren't ours when they were created. People don't realize that. They're Gladio. But anyway, the U.S. intel is having a heck of a problem. They're using AI generated stuff, artificial intelligence, right? So go find this for us. And then it does, of course. If you just look at the attacks that have been happening and the targets that they have been hitting, as far as I'm concerned, the United States intelligence service, especially for targeting and planning, are clowns. And I hate to say that about our military, but they have to be clowns. It's amateur hour. These people are worse today than when it was politicized under Clinton and Obama, right? And Bush. I mean, at least we knew it was politicized and they had a political agenda. These people, they just seem to be genocidal and bound and determined to break every international law, every code of conduct, every convention on war, right? I mean, it's crazy. It's a difference between politicized, which you can see, and ignorance, which you can see. The problem, we keep hearing that they want to destroy and overthrow the Iranian government. It's a problem. And I'm going to explain to you why. They want to get rid of the Iranian government and put in their own puppet. And they want to make sure that the leadership can't come back. Well, part of my problem is my hair curls and like this. And then the other problem is the wind's blowing. But anyway, the words are more important than my hair. The problem is they have Iran has set up a mosaic structure of 12 independent zones. Within those independent zones, they have independent operations. Okay. They have preset attack plans, preset defense plans, preset response plans. Okay. Both civilian and military. They have 3 independent control centers. It's not centers, but centers of control. You have the IRGC, you have the regular Iranian military, and then you have the secular elected body, okay? All 3 of those can act completely independent as far as communication and what they do. Now, then you have all these mosaics that they have created. It's like a spider web that each one of those nodules on that spider web can act independently if they're cut off from communications, all right? They have independent communications. They have independent access to IRS, which is intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. They have independent target acquisition ability. They don't have to wait for orders. And it's by zone, it's overlapping, and it's rotating. That's the targets. So it's by zone, it's overlapping so that Group A and Group B will have overlapping targeting. And it rotates. So Group A might attack straight south. The next attack will go one direction or the other. Okay, so I don't know who's watching CNN too much, but anyway, so they have rotating attack structures. The old school intelligence, reconnaissance, and surveillance was much better. I mean, they hit the school. And you could see that the school was what it was. Actually, they've hit 6 of them now. But you could see that the school was clearly identified as a school on Google Earth. The same thing with the soccer field. The same thing with the park. They hit a place called Police Park. It's a public park. Nothing there but a public park. But this is their policy. When they can't hit military targets, and even when they can, they target civilians. Somebody can say, well, it's just the British protectorate in Palestine. It's the way they do things. No, the United States has habitually done this, and you can go back to Yugoslavia and Serbia and see the same thing. Right? Now, I don't fault the military for the orders, but I do fault the people who are following illegal orders and doing it. They could refuse to bomb civilian structures like hospitals and schools. Problem is they probably have no idea that they are doing it. And then there's always the ones that would do it just because they're sadists. Russia has ended its sales to Europe for energy. China has shut off its exports of oil and LNG. I told everybody last week, Monday, I told everybody on Monday that oil would break 100 this week. And yesterday, spot oil was over 90 and futures had broke 100. I think it came back just a little bit, but It's obvious when you know the patterns. I'm old enough to remember what happened. Well, I don't really remember it because of experience in it. I remember because I lived through it. And then I know the history of it. But I remember what happened in 78, 79. And then we had the same problem at the beginning of Iraq. It just got reeled in very quickly. But anyway, Qatar, their LNG has gone offline. I think I mentioned this the other day. It takes 4 weeks from the time they start it before they can start shipping it out because they have to repressurize the system. They have to. There's 3 processes, and I don't know LNG that well. Okay. But I know that they have to repressurize. They got to start pulling it up out of the ground. Then they got to repressurize the whole system. The whole system has to be checked. And then there's something about the moisture content before they can start loading it on ships and transport and whatever rail and transporting it. LNG is not my thing. I don't know that. Somebody said I needed to watch Hank Hill, but that was propane. Kuwait has shut down oil production. I don't know to what extent, but they are shutting down oil production because if it's not running and it gets hit, it can be repaired. But if it's running, then you have multiple, what I said, chain reaction explosions. Data centers are being hit. I wonder why Iran would get and hit data centers. It's because a lot of those data centers that they say are for Amazon or for Google or for whoever are actually connected. There's a reason why I always used to say that DARPA, Google, Microsoft were all one company. So, if there's a Google data center, you know that the CIA and Mossad and others are working it, right? Are using it. Regional divisions. There is discontent in the streets in a lot of those Arab states right now. The false flags that the British Protectorate tried to launch have backfired. And then a lot of the Arab states are accusing the United States of abandoning them, but that's true. They're pulling out security to move it other places, right? They're not lying, but they were only flunkies for oil anyway, and anybody who doesn't understand that doesn't understand the history, right? I'm kind of older now, so I'm kind of more like Ronnie James Dio when he got older. The hair. It's been this way for decades. The back of my hair used to go all the way down to my waist. I said yesterday I cut it off when my wife died. It was a thing to honor her memory. But anyway, so BlackRock is in a free fall, y'all. They froze their withdrawals yesterday. They're so tied into the Arab states and the Arab idea that I don't know how they're going to handle it. Granted, they're a huge company, right? But they have to know what's coming in and what's going out. And the mess that's going on right now is bad. Okay. But anyway, so they were in a free fall yesterday and they froze withdrawals. Scott Bessent is a name to remember because Bessent was the one that was responsible for the targeting of the Iranian money, the Iranian currency that caused the problem in December that put people on the streets protesting the economy in January. Scott Bessent is the one that was behind that. So I will tell you that his assets in the Middle East and other places are going to be targeted. It's just going to happen. So if you're pay attention to things connected to Scott Bessent. All right, now as far as the Iranian nukes go, they haven't had them. Tulsi Gabbard was in the Senate saying, look, 21 intelligence agencies say they've got no intentions of getting them. I've got a storm coming in here, so that's the reason why the wind's starting to blow. I'm trying to talk louder to make sure y'all can hear me. But anyway, Tulsi Gabbard, in her testimony, said 21 agencies, they have no intentions of developing nukes, right? They have a fatwa in place, or had. I emphasize I don't know if they do or not now, because they killed the one person that maintained it. The Ayatollah Khamenei, had a fatwa that said no, and he had adhered to it all this time, right? Where that's funny. That's funny. But the fatwa that he put up, no nukes. But here's the problem: they have enough 60%. And I said this the other day. What they have had all this time was not strong enough. Not strong enough to. I like laughing. That's the reason why I do comedy. So comedy break in here every once in a while is fantastic. The problem that we have here is the 60% that they had. What I told everybody yesterday is, it's not, you gotta remember, I did ABC, atomic, biological, and chemical. 60% will not make weapons no matter how much you have. All right. I could have tons of 60% refined. What I have is nuclear fuel for power reactors. All right. And some very specific medical facilities. But we killed the one person who was preventing it. 4 weeks. I'm telling you right now. And they have made it true. They have made it true. If the fatwa, I don't know which way to say it. I don't know which way to accent it. I don't speak. But the fatwa that they put in, the banning of making nuclear weapons is what prevented them from doing it. Okay? It's not that they couldn't. It's just that they were banned from doing it. And I don't want to side with anybody who has been lying about this shit for years. You think about it. If you had 60% and it could be done very quickly, you'd already done it, right? After 20 years, don't you think that they would have it? And I'm going to explain to you why. If they intended to have fissile material on a weapon that could be shot into the air and launched into anywhere, they could have done it any time. Why? Because right now, from 60%, and I went back and checked. I wasn't sure about the timeline because wasn't sure about the centrifuges that they have. Once I found out that the centrifuges that they have, literally, folks, right now, they could go from 4 weeks to 6 weeks. They would have enough material turned to metal and on board, say, medium range rockets, 2,500 kilometers. They could do it in 4 weeks. And the idea between the British Protectorate of Palestine and the United States, geniuses in Washington, D.C., was that they would kill the one person who was preventing it from happening. It seems counterproductive to me. Now, the other side of this, right? The non-proliferation treaty, right? That's a word that's hard to say all the time, but the NPT actually allows for the enrichment for medical use and for power, nuclear power. Doesn't matter who. I said 4 to 6 weeks. They would have to spin it up. Their centrifuges are capable of it. That's the thing I wasn't sure about, was their centrifuges. So I'll answer this question for you. I wasn't sure about the centrifuges, but I am reasonably certain 4 to 6 weeks they could actually do it. That means that they would have to focus the use of those centrifuges for that purpose. And I said the other day, yesterday, I pointed out, the only reason why they have this excessive amount stored is because of the sanctions preventing them from delivering what they have to the people who were purchasing it. That 60% refined was for delivery for medical and for, say, like Russia, their nuclear power station. Russia would have spun it up to the requirements of their power stations. France, for example, was doing it. So the sanctions prevented them from selling it, so they ended up with an excess beyond what they originally agreed to store. Okay, so they're getting blamed for having more in storage than they agreed to, while they were being sanctioned and not allowed to move it. Right? Yes, they do have. Yeah, but you're not listening to the rest of the conversation. What you said is the negotiator for Iran walked into the last negotiations saying that they had 460 kilogram of 60% pure, enough to make 11 nuclear weapons. That is true. That is absolutely true. But see, here's the lie of omission. You didn't include the next part. If we wanted to make a nuclear weapon, we already would have. See, half of the truth is a lie. I've been pointing this out to you for a long time, if you've been listening to me. So you say the part that makes your point and ignore the rest of the statement. It's not nice. If they wanted, and that's what I'm saying right now, if they wanted, I've said it, you heard me say it. If they wanted to make nuclear weapons, they could have done it for the last 20 years, and they didn't. And the reason why they had so much in storage is because the sanctions prevented them from delivering what ended up being an excess to the people who purchased it from them. They actually were exporting. You don't know shit, dude. Quit arguing with me about stuff you don't know. They were using it in their own nuclear facilities, and they were exporting it to France, Russia, and China for not nuclear weapons, true, but for nuclear power plants. Fact. Either know or don't know. Don't include your beliefs from mainstream media and propaganda in my conversations. Thank you. Russia was buying it from them. France was buying it from them. Germany was buying it from them. Guess what? The United States, until the sanctions, were actually buying it from them. The sanctions restricted their movement and sale of it. But you didn't read the terms of the sanctions, so you don't know that? I love it when people come on here half informed. I'm not trying to be rude, but if you don't know, go find out. Don't give me beliefs and don't give me propaganda, because I'm not interested. But anyway, so the importance of the Ayatollah, in addition to the fact that he kept them from making nuclear weapons, is the fact that there has been a spread of outrage throughout the Shia community. I point out again, we've had Shia and Sunni on the streets together, protesting the killing of mullahs, because the Ayatollah being the main, well, he's one of the main ones in Shia. I think there's 7 of them. There used to be 12, but I think there's 7 remaining. But not only did they kill him, but they killed other mullahs, specifically targeted them. So we have a religious problem, not just a social and political one. And when you start bringing in religion, all rational, logical thought go out the window. I'm just saying. We have a problem with the other problem that we have with our military. This is what I was talking about. We have a connectivity-driven military. It requires satellites. It requires a lot of communications. It requires ground radar, and all that has to be coordinated through electronic systems, right? A low-altitude rocket full of bolts and nuts would eliminate the satellites, and a small EMP would eliminate everything else. So, as advanced as people like to claim that the military is, a very simple solution would get rid of it. All right. A very simple solution would get rid of it. A low altitude launch with a light explosive full of nuts and bolts and nails and whatever, just little pieces of metal. And you could literally eliminate every bit of the communication overhead. All right. Next. And I'll tell you why I block people who take up all the communication within the chat. This is because if they keep taking up all the communication in the chat and creating unnecessary arguments about facts that aren't facts, their beliefs and propaganda, then what happens is you all can't communicate with each other, and I also can't communicate with you and see the questions that you're asking me. But anyway, um, winning battles does not win a war. And as this thing progresses, I want people to understand that winning battles does not win the war. All the time that we were in Korea, we won battle after battle after battle. But you got to be old enough to have had the history. I don't even think they teach it in school anymore. Same thing with Vietnam. In Vietnam, we won battle after battle after battle. And in both cases, those conflicts, we were forced to retreat. Same thing with Afghanistan, many events in South America. Um, the best victory is not war. Or I'm sorry, the best victory in war is won without combat. Right now we've got 16, and I've counted the ones that I've seen on interviews, plus the ones that I've talked to. We've got 16 old military guys to say that there's no way to win a war with Iran. One of the guys had 20 years plus of high-level planning, okay, and gaming. Not this AI BS where you go in and destroy all the civilian structure and hope that you win. They tried that in Afghanistan. That didn't go very well. They've tried that in Gaza, and they're still kind of crawling out and doing their thing. Same thing with Lebanon, with the Hezbollah. The Mosaic system is huge. All right. Something else y'all need to know is they're still using somewhere between 8 and 10-year-old technology. The stuff that they're ask me a question. If I was the president right now, what would I do the first day in office? I would go to the military and request that they seek out, detain, and deport every person in the United States that has dual citizenship. That's the first thing I would do. That would eliminate a lot of our problems. You cannot be a dual citizen and have loyalty solely to the United States, which is required under your oath of office. If you are a dual citizen and you are in the Senate, that is illegal, first of all, under the Constitution. If you're in the Congress, it's illegal. If you're in the military, it's illegal. You cannot have dual citizenship and serve in any federal or state capacity. I would also take care of the problem in the military with the same issue. Ilhan Omar, she's already been proven. She's already been proven to be a criminal. They found out that she falsified her own personal records, falsified immigration records for her brother, and has committed fraud on several levels. For me, I said it a long time ago. Somebody should go arrest her, prosecute her for the crimes that she has committed, put her in prison and let her work off her time, because we're not going to give it to her for free. She doesn't get to eat and have medical and room and board for free. And as soon as she serves the time for the crimes that she's committed, she needs to be deported back to Somalia. It's that simple. That's the way it should be. She has committed a crime. She needs to go. But she needs to serve her time for the crime. And since the evidence is already there that she committed fraud multiple times, and she falsified documentation in order to get her brother in here, she's automatically, just the evidence that's already out there, there's no way you can find her guilty. Put her in prison, let her serve her time, I don't know, breaking up rocks for gravel. And when her time is served, send her back to where she came from. We do not need criminals in this country, let alone criminals who then run for office under false pretenses. And I'm just stating the fact. I don't care. I said it before, so you understand. I'm not against immigration. I had 3 brothers that were Mexican. They were here with valid paperwork. They had applied. They had come here on a work visa. They kept their work visa updated, and they worked for me. When I decided I wanted out of that business, which was roofing, because I had other things that I really had to take care of. I asked them, would you like to have this business? I'll sell it to you. And they're just like, huh? I said, here's how we do it. You will pay me so much out of your annual profit until you pay for the business. And I said, and well, whatever the real value of the business is, we'll take 25% off of it because I need to get rid of this. And they're just looking at me. I said, oh, so I'll sell it to you for 75% of what it's worth. I sold them the business because they were here legally. They were paying taxes, right? And they were doing everything that they were supposed to be doing. And that I'm okay with. But when you come into the United States and you hide for 10 years, don't pay taxes, you don't pay taxes, and you don't uphold the responsibilities that you would have if you were here working under a visa or if you were a citizen, right? If you came in here and you hid for 10 years, and then when you got caught being here illegally, that's the key. They are here illegally. They've already committed a crime. When you get caught after being here for 10 years illegally, you all of a sudden want to apply for work visa or whatever. It's too late. You've already committed a crime for 10 years. It's not that I'm not sympathetic. I understand. Some people are here 10 years, they get married, they have kids, whatever. I understand this. But you were content to live here without contributing anything to the society that you're in, the community that you're part of. You didn't pay taxes. You didn't do any of that stuff that everybody else has to do in order to be here. And you hid for 10 years while being here when you shouldn't have been. And then all of a sudden you want to apply for citizenship because you got caught doing something illegal? No. Now, I don't think you should be running in there and knocking them on the ground and breaking their arms and legs. There is a way to do it. There is a way to do it. First of all, you have to do your intelligence and reconnaissance and surveillance. Then you have to have the video and the audio evidence. You take it to a judge and you say, this person, we know for a fact, has illegal workers. The judge looks at the evidence and says, yes, and he gives you a warrant. You go in there an hour after everybody clocks in, and you get the illegals out. That's the legal way to do it. You don't take 100 guys and crash into a building without a warrant. See? The compromise. Do it the right way, but do it. So the Mosaic system of their command structure in Iran, they're still using 8 to 10-year-old technology. The stuff that they're launching now is 8 or 10 years old. I'm getting little bits of hail. I got a storm coming, y'all. I thought it was just going to rain, but that's hail. None of the underground facilities have been hit as far as their personnel are saying. Now, everybody does war propaganda, so maybe a couple of them have been hit. There's no way for us to know. They're underground and we can't see them. The people who are in Iran and are speaking are saying that none of their facilities have been hit. Of course you would. You don't want anybody to know that your facilities have been hit. The United States says they've wiped them all out. All right. The United States and the Little British Protectorate in Palestine have said they've wiped them all out. They have no more left. So the truth is somewhere in between, right? I would say that some stuff has been hit. And because of the way it's set up and the way it was done, I would say it's very little. But not nothing. And I also would say that the United States and the British Protectorate in Palestine saying they have been wiping it out is a big exaggeration, but that's what war propaganda is. See, a lot of people haven't been through war propaganda. They're too young to remember the stuff that went on in the build-up and during the Iraq situation. And I remember the Vietnam propaganda. I'm that old. Anyway, So let's see. Next, I'm trying to get through all this, y'all, and we keep getting interrupted by people. But anyway, the Hormuz is not. I love y'all. I like sense of humor and irony and sarcasm. I just do. Hey, how are you doing? Um, I like irony and sarcasm and humor. So when the PM of Iran was asked if the Hormuz Strait was closed, I'm going to say it again. He responded by saying, "It's not closed, but it is not open." I love it. You know, it's a really serious situation, absolutely. But but to be able to do it in a response that is straightforward. I mean, he didn't even smile. I thought, wow. Okay, so Dubai and the other Gulf states are running out of food and supplies. And I don't know if you understand how the Middle East works, but there's a lot of places there that can't grow their own food. I mean, it's sand. Anybody who's been to Iraq knows this, right? There are a lot of places in the Middle East that can't grow their own food. And they built up this enterprise and this high dollar vacation space and these high dollar hotels and casinos and all this other stuff, right? They built all this up on the premise that they would never have to worry, because the United States said they wouldn't, about getting supplies. So we have a lot of places over there that are running out of food and supplies. Water is a huge weakness for all these people because they have plants where it's processed and places where it's piped through. Oil and gas rigs and pipelines are a huge issue as far as targeting. Then we have our good buddies, the CIA, Mossad, and MI6, who are attempting to hide in hotels in them places. Okay? CIA rented out a floor and then rented out a couple floors above it. They rented out one floor for meetings and a floor a couple above it so that they would have a place to sleep, because you don't, in your meeting centers, you don't, you know. So Iran targeted the floors that they were on. Now, I feel bad for the civilians. I said it the other day, and I'll say it again. I hate it. The civilians get sucked into this because our agents and agencies have a tendency to hide behind civilians, right? It's like the little British protectorate in Palestine, putting all of its headquarters and command centers and stuff under schools, under public apartment complexes. But anyway, so there's an issue. A lot of these hotel attacks were actually where they had restationed personnel, and it sucks. But if I was Iran and I knew that they had went and hid somewhere and I could find them, I'd target them. It's just common sense. As much as it sucks and as much as I don't like civilians getting involved, I can tell you I would do the same thing. If I was in an existential battle, say in Africa, where, let's say my old unit was in Africa, all right? And we came under attack doing our job. And I knew that the command behind that attack was in a hotel. You think I wouldn't have asked a fast mover from either the Navy or the Air Force to take out that hotel so that they couldn't keep attacking us out in the field? Damn straight I would have. Now, it sucks. Let me explain to you. Unknown? Yeah. My hostility is proof. My hostility is this: when you are doing things that are illegal and put my American citizens and citizens in the Arab states at risk, I have the right to be angry, right? But you, my friend, are just interrupting things and spewing horseshit. You know, male bovine excrement must have been your supper last night, because ever since you started posting, all you post is male bovine excrement to do away with the conversation. And you attack me on principles that are not fact. They've been proven to be propaganda. And beliefs, which are even worse, because a belief doesn't have to have any statements of fact, knowledge, or experience behind it. Right? Now, if I am being hostile to you, it's because you're a heckler. Have you ever seen what comedians do to hecklers? I'm actually being very nice to you compared to what I would be doing to you if you were at one of my comedy events. Now, the Saudis and Qatar have been helping house, and besides that, how could you not be angry? They are killing civilians by the thousands. How could you not be angry with the genocide in Gaza? 600,000 people at least dead just because they could. How could you not be angry about the 2,000 or 3,000 that were just killed in Lebanon that were all civilians because they carpet bombed a civilian neighborhood? How could you not be angry about a CIA asset that hates everybody and works for the British Protectorate now being the president in Syria and going out and killing not just Christians, any Muslim that didn't agree with them? How could you be okay with the United States setting up Arab states as a place to fly out of, but not protecting the people there? How could you be okay with the people in Washington, D.C. continually lying to you about the negotiations? Have you listened to the gentleman from Oman who was actually there instead of Witless and Kushner? You know, Kushner was the one who killed his girlfriend in California and got by with it. They have no experience in nuclear, atomic, of any kind. They have no experience in biological or chemical. They have no experience as negotiators other than for land and maximum profit. If you listen to Western media, they're not even telling you about the crimes against humanity that were committed by the British Protectorate in Palestine and Gaza, like cutting off their water, cutting off their electricity, cutting off medical supplies, violation of every Geneva Convention, War Convention, and United Nations agreement. So if you do not understand the history of the situation, you do not understand the current facts behind the situation, then you shouldn't be making all these comments on my podcast. Actually, no. You see, here you are repeating the propaganda. They actually did export. They exported to France. They exported to Russia, Germany. The Chinese were going to buy some for their nuclear power plants, except they couldn't ship it. So you got to go back further than just the propaganda and rhetoric that you've been listening to. That's the problem with people who watch television. They become brainwashed zombie TV addicts that believe everything that they see and hear rather than doing research themselves. I have had enough of you interrupting everybody else, so apparently you need to go. I would suggest you go listen to the interviews that the moderator from Oman has been giving, so that you can actually get some real information instead of repeating what Witless and Hegseth and the people who have an agenda to destroy Iran for 30 years have been saying. Y'all, I will put up with it to a point, and I have even tried to address the issue, and he just keeps going. I think I was nice to him. You know, I don't like propaganda and rhetoric. I'm just telling you all what I know. I know for a fact that Iran had been set up to sell and deliver. Actually, they were going to come and retrieve it, but I know Russia was even going to take some of the nuclear. But the sanctions prevented them from selling it. He said 40%. Y'all, they admitted to having 60% back when they did the original JPCOA. All right. And that they were going to go to 60% because it was needed for power stations and medical. I mean, that's been known. It's nothing new. The lie that they didn't reveal that they had 60% came right out of Higgs's mouth and Whitless's mouth. And here's my thing: it's not even about the nuclear. We all know this. That's the excuse that everybody they want you to go back to that red herring, a false trail. They want you to go back to the red herring about nuclear, nuclear, nuclear. When they had an agreement, and the moderator from mediator from Oman, when they had the agreement, all of a sudden that wasn't good enough, right? They had an agreement on nuclear and it wasn't good enough, so now we have to take their missiles and we have to take their ability to defend themselves. I mean, Cheney in 2005 said that Iran would be next on our list. Y'all, that was 20 years ago. They've been planning to attack Iran that long. And then we can go back to General Wesley Clark. See, people want to think that this is something new and there's an excuse for it. We can go back to General Wesley Clark. General Wesley Clark said what? There are 7 countries that they want to attack, and he was floored. Iran was one of them, right? So, I can't help it when people watch television and they're programmed and they can't hear or see what's obvious in front of them. I can't help that. I mean, one of the first podcasts that I did when I started back doing podcasts was television programming. And I explained why these people cannot be reached. They will not see evidence no matter how much you give them. And of course, then you have the belief systems, whether it be religious, political, or secular. They have the belief systems that, they refuse to see the lie in the middle of that belief and actually look at evidence. General Wesley Clark, there are 7 nations that are going to attack. That was right after the Iraq War started, right? Or right before. And then we have in 2005, Cheney publicly saying that we're going to go after Iran. So if they were saying it in 2001 and 2005, why does anybody today believe that this was about anything other than that they intended to do it 20 years ago? I think Cuba is in trouble. I think Brazil, I'm going to get to that, by the way, y'all. I think Brazil is in trouble. That deal in Ecuador had nothing to do with drugs. Did you see that mess? I haven't dug into it. I just know that there were a lot of things that went on down there that are questionable from what I've read, but I haven't had a chance to dig into it. And since I was down there a long, long time ago, I'm really curious as to what they were doing back in Ecuador again. Right? I'm really curious. All right, now the Khalifa family. Saudi and Qatar, before I get interrupted by that guy, they've been helping in housing U.S. Spec Ops, intelligence services, and what have you. That's the reason why they were targeted, unfortunately. Iran, to me, they're being nice. They're only targeting the United States and British Protectorate and Palestine assets in those countries. Like one of the airports in Qatar got hit, right? Come to find out, the United States had our aircraft in those hangars. If you're going to house it, Iran said that they were not going to tolerate being attacked from some other country by either or. So when they allowed them to put their aircraft in those hangars and hide them from overhead view, made them a target, unfortunately. I don't like any of this. I don't like any of these people dying. I don't like, and the numbers of our dead is. Did you see that in Germany? Well, I'm thinking about this. I'm absolutely 100% against this war on all counts. Okay. I was 100% against the Iraq war as well. Because I knew what actually happened in Iraq, not the propaganda and rhetoric that they were spewing. Right. But anyway, I'm 100% against this war. I'm against it on religious grounds because I don't follow any of those religions. I'm against this on political and social grounds. Is that it? That's simple. And when you have to lie to try to convince me that we need to do something, then the lie is the exact reason why we shouldn't. Pretty simple. But anyway, so daggone it. I looked at your question. I forgot what I was talking about. That wig. Look, y'all. It's not a wig. It is not a wig. It is connected to my head. I love it though. You gotta laugh. Anyway, so it looks better when it's wet and oiled. I got out of the shower and now it's starting to rain, and this humidity is making it just go poof. It's funny, ain't it? But yeah, I'm against the war. Um, but anyway, so man, I started to say something about this, and you distracted me, which is fine. I like laughing, so thank you. I'm not against all war. I think there are circumstances in which a war would be justified. Good example is if I lived in Gaza, I think going to war against the British protectorate in Palestine would be natural. I think if I was in Lebanon and had been bombed continuously for 30 years, I would have no issues with putting on a uniform and going against the war, going against the British protectorate in Palestine for its atrocities. Just saying. World War II is a little bit different because of the manipulations, but can you let somebody destroy a whole continent of Europe because of the manipulations of everybody else that caused it? No, you can't. You just absolutely can't. There have been instances throughout history that the atrocities warranted going to war to stop the atrocities. But here we have all these people who are against Islam, against a nation called Iran that hadn't attacked anybody in 200 years except for the war with Iraq that we funded, the United States funded, being unprovoked. I mean, they did nothing, and now they're being bombed to smithereens by a. But here's my thing. My notes I want to try to get through, but here's something that's more important to me. How could people stand by all these years and watch the Iran hasn't done anything to anybody? They had a war with Iraq that we funded. They threw out our puppet that was a tyrant and murdering people who tried to stand up for their rights. And don't get me wrong, the Ayatollah and the regime and the government has not been ideal. But when you look at the ideal inside the United States or England or Germany or France right now, let's do a comparison. Let's compare the government of Iran over the last 10 years, who has become more moderate, more tolerant, reached out to help more people, to the governments of the Western countries. Just saying. We have people in the United States who think someone who's like me that disagrees with their ideologies should be put in a re-education camp and left to die. That's our own people here in the United States, y'all. We have people in the United States that think Palantir's Gotham platform with its surveillance should be hooked to autonomous drones, that if I'm sitting out here on the porch doing this podcast, it can just come up and shoot my ass for disagreeing with them. But our government is so much better. I don't know where people get that concept at. We have laws in the United States right now. Just the fact that I'm talking against that British protectorate in Palestine can have me put in jail with no trial. I can be held indefinitely with no trial. That's here in the United States, you all. As a matter of fact, I thought it was 39 states. It's 42. 42 states. Well, hey, I'll go along with you on that one too. I love that statement. At least the people in Iran know the difference between a man and a woman. And I bet everybody in their government could answer that question. While our Secretary of Health in the United States couldn't. Isn't that awful? I appreciate the laugh. I love it, y'all. I'm glad you all are on here with me, and we all need to laugh. I mean, this shit is so serious. It's just crazy what they're doing. But the Khalifa family in Bahrain, right? Um, I honestly think the regime change that the United States and that British protectorate in Palestine have been talking about for Iran is actually going to happen in more of the Gulf states and not Iran. They are in trouble. They are backing the British protectorate in the United States after having killed the Ayatollah and other mullahs. That is not going to go well if you are a British appointed leader in an Arab country that are Shia. You know, it doesn't take much to see that there's a conflict of interest here. And there are a lot more people on the street than you have in the military that's going to defend you. Oh, and a lot of your military are Shia as well. Um, I'm, I'm just saying, I could see a lot of problems for the Arab states because they have a high Shia population. The Sunnis are mad too, and they are British appointed rulers. They're not, some of them aren't even actually from there. You know, back in the day, it used to be Arabia, not Saudi Arabia. The reason why it's Saudi Arabia is because the Saudis were appointed by the British colonialists when they left and named it Saudi Arabia. They don't have great, and of course, they hate each other too. I mean, the cousins are always trying to assassinate each other. They could get pretty messy pretty quick. All because of British colonialism, you all. It's how far back it goes. It goes back to World War One. This mess that we're seeing today goes back to World War One and before with the colonialism. And you know, eventually things shake out. Unfortunately, I think it's going to get really messy before it gets shaken out. You know, I feel sorry for the people. The rulers have been cruel ass, arrogant, hedonistic, satanistic. Not all of them, but the rulers in the British protectorates that are the Arab states have been arrogant, deceitful. They have not taken great care of their people overall. They live like kings while the rest of their people work like slaves. And they are loyal to the British. They are British appointed. I don't really want to see it break out, but the way that they're going right now, and they insist. I mean, if they just stayed neutral, they would probably be okay. But they're not. They're insisting on not remaining neutral, and that is going to, you know, when you got 10 million people or 30 million people that are Shia, and you're not, and you're an appointed leader, and you are helping the people who killed the Ayatollah, your odds of survival go down. I mean, I would think your odds of survival would go down. All right. Last bit, and I'm going to go through this real quick, and then I'll look at the comments and we'll have some fun, okay? So if I miss something, you can put it back in here. Let me get through. I got 2 more sections. I'll go really fast, all right? First part. I will look at your stuff here in a minute, all right? I will look at apostasy. You mean being a heretic? It depends on where you're at. But let me get to that. You put it back in here in a minute. Let me finish this real quick. That way we can get this information covered. All right. They're talking about putting troops on the ground in Iran. All right. Everybody that I've talked to and everybody that I have seen say that it would take somewhere between 700 and 900,000 minimum. Y'all seeing that in my expression? It's going to take between 7 and 900,000. That's just to start out with. Okay. There is no real egress point, no matter where you look at on the map. I don't know where they would enter Iran from. I guess they could go in from Iraq, but those passes that they would have to go through would be a pinch point that would get you blown to hell. All right. Anybody on here been in the military? Would you want to go through a closed off valley as a group or as a unit or as a forward operations, knowing that the whole mountain's covered with people going to kill you? But anyway, there is no real egress point other than possibly Iraq. But the Iraqis have already said they're done with this. Um, it's possible that we do have advisors on the ground, like they started out in Vietnam and Korea, but I don't know where they would be. The Kurds have said, heck no. And the ones inside Iran who were going to try to take over some territory, they've been taken care of, which is within your. Okay, think about this. If we are in the United States, man, I don't know who to pick on because I don't want to be unfair. Let's just say here in the United States, we had a group called the Pine Needles. All right. The Pine Needles was a separatist group within the United States, and the Pine Needles were located in Alabama. And all of a sudden, that little group of Pine Needles, the people, wanted to take over Louisiana and parts of Mississippi. So they got all armed up, and they're going to move on Louisiana and Mississippi out of Alabama. Do you think for a minute that anybody around here would put up with that little group of Pine Needles trying to take over 2 more states? That's what happened to the Kurds in Iran. They got armed up by the United States and CIA, and they started to move, and they got hit. I feel bad. You'd think the Kurds, I mean, the ones in Iraq said, go to hell. We aren't helping you again because you got us all killed last time. Not all of us, but thousands killed last time. You would think that they would figure out that that's not a good partnership to make. Don't forget, the Kurds were the other ones that were attacked with chemical weapons by Saddam Hussein because he was given to get those chemical weapons were given to him by the United States. So ground invasion, I don't see it. I don't see the possibility of it. You try to land on the beach, you're going to get blown up. You try to come through those passes in the mountains, even with helicopter air cover. And helicopters don't have the same advantage of speed that high movers do, or fast movers do. So fast movers, even though they can get through and give you cover, it's not going to be the same. Because these people are going to pop out of caves in the mountains and they're just going to start wiping you out. Look at Afghanistan. Anybody in here was in Afghanistan? I wasn't. Not during the conflict, I wasn't. But I've heard stories about how they would blow the hell out of a whole mountain and then they'd go in there and be getting shot at again in 20 minutes. I mean, that's the problem, you know, the difference between hide and seek and siege warfare. So I don't see, it's going to be a mess. For 30 years, all right, I want people to understand this. For 30 years, the planners inside the U.S. and the European Union for 30 years on the idea of invading Iran all said hell no. Not just no, hell no. That's American planners and European planners invading on the invasion of a possible invasion of Iraq. For 30 years, they said it's not a possibility. It would cost too many lives to do it. All right. It's not about no balls. It's about not getting your troops blown to hell. There's a difference. You got the people who are planners and logistics and intelligence that look at reality, and then you got the ones who don't care and will just send people into a meat grinder until they get through. All right. So here's the strategic failures that we're seeing so far. The first one is a decapitation strike doesn't work. It just doesn't. Carpet bombing. The carpet bombing that they're doing in the cities in Iran right now is actually counterproductive. And I'll explain to you why. The carpet bombing in Iran is counterproductive because these are the educated people. These are the more secular and moderate people. So the people who might be more cooperative and more moderate in their beliefs are the ones you're killing. Soft targeting is never a good idea. Going after, soft targets like police and fire and rescue. I'm going to tell you why. And this double tapping where this double tapping where you blow up a building and then you wait 45 minutes until the rescuers and other people are there to try to rescue you, get people out, and then you hit it again. All that does is create resentment and anger in levels that people don't understand. Um, you could probably arm and bribe insurgents, but in a space that's the size of Western Europe, you better have a lot of them. I mean, back to what I said, 700 to 900,000 minimum just to get in. And then all these atrocities hitting. You have to ask yourself, if the targeting is so great, why were two of the first targets elementary schools? Right? I understand why they went after the Shah, because they don't understand how the system works. Or not the Shah, the Ayatollah, forgive me. I understand why they went after the Ayatollah, because they don't understand how the system works and how much more inflamed the region get, because they don't understand the religion and they don't understand the people. That's what your intelligence is supposed to be doing, your ISR. They're supposed to have people who understand who you're. First rule of war is know your enemy. First rule of war is know your enemy. And we are in a situation today where we have people globally that have no idea what Russia is today versus what the Soviets were back in the 80s and 70s. And they have no idea who the Persians are today. They're all going based on the events of 1979, right? If you do not know who you are attacking, you also cannot know why you are attacking. Now, the reason why these strategic failures are so bad is because it creates an energy amongst the population. It creates openness on the part of the government and the population, and it creates a cohesion where there might not have been one. Good example, the people who live in the cities are educated, secular, and moderate. The people who live in the countries tend to be more fundamentalist Islam, more hardline. What they have done by doing what they're doing is they have created a cohesion between those groups, right? They have created a cohesion. What's a moderate Muslim? The ones in Iran who have one of the largest populations of Torah-following Jews living amongst them in peace. That's a moderate Muslim. So what they've done is they've created a Persian nationalistic ideology now, right? Yeah, I know I'm over the target when I get this kind of crap, right? Radical Muslim is the CIA operative that was put in as a president of Syria that was cutting off the heads of other Muslims who refused to agree with him. That's a radical. But then you also have the religious outrage because of the death of the Ayatollah. All right. So what we're seeing is a huge strategic failure. All right. And I'm not a strategist. I relied on them when I did my job. All right. So if they knew that there was a weapon of some kind, let's say biological, chemical, or atomic, because that's what I dealt with, we know it's here, right? I would go to a lot of times I'd go to the Air Force. Sometimes I would go to military intelligence, which is an oxymoron today. Kind of was back then even, y'all, so it's not changed. But I would go to the analysts, and they would give me the best idea of how to get in, how to deal with the situation, the people who live there in the area, that kind of thing, all right? That was all done before any of our units were ever put in place. We knew who we were dealing with, what kind of territory it was, what kind of ideologies were there. We knew everything that we needed to know about the area, actually know about the area, not assume, not guess, before we went into a place, right? Because you handle every place differently. Some places you can walk in and say, hey, look, we know that there are dangerous weapons here. All we want to do is pick them up and take them out of here. Some places you had to go in and fight for them. Some places you could go in with a suitcase of money and they would hand them all over to you. You solve the solution. The solution to the problem is the best solution to the problem with the least risk to yourselves and civilians. That's the way I was taught. But anyway, so this creates a very lean command structure that's younger, less experienced, more likely to do things that you would not expect, right? They're going to be more motivated because all of these atrocities and all these things that have happened already is going to motivate them to defend their nation and their people and their families, right? And the energy level is going to go up and their strategy is going to change. Their strategy is not going to be what you expected. And then back to the religious, and we have religious outrage merging with secular nationalism and creating a cohesive people that are going to resist. It's not one or the other. And here's the other thing with the placements in Iran. We're playing hide and seek with them, and since we can't find them, we're blowing up civilian structures and violating all kinds of international laws and conventions, while they're in the process of creating a siege warfare from their location. Strait of Hormuz, oil's being shut down, transportation's being shut down. They have literally put the whole area and a lot of the world, whether you realize it yet or not, is under siege. Right? Azerbaijan. I'm not sure what's going on there, folks. I'm hearing different things from different places. I'm hearing something from Iran. I'm hearing something from the United Nations. I'm hearing something from Azerbaijan. I'm hearing that situation. Anybody who says they know what's going on in Azerbaijan, if they tell you they know what's going on, I hope they got better sources than I could find, because I've got no clue. You know, Azerbaijan they've been attempting to bribe them. They've been attempting to manipulate them. They've been attempting to intimidate them against Russia and Iran, by the way, not just one or the other. I got no clue. All right. I just don't. I would love to be able to tell you that I know what's going on, but I don't. It is possible that Russia may intervene there using diplomatic first and then whatever they need to later. I got no clue. I would love to be able to tell you that I know more, but I don't. Anybody who says they do must have better connections, you know, and there's a lot of people out there talking that have much better connections to me. Colonel McGregor, for example, Colonel Wilkerson, for example. Even Daniel Davis has connections that I cannot make. So I am not by any means the best informed. I just try to do my research as thoroughly as I possibly can, and then tell you. Like in this case, Azerbaijan, I got no clue. I'm honest. The fact that what I said about Russia possibly intervening is because I heard that from someone who has a lot better contacts than me. I actually heard that from someone else. I can't remember because I was writing notes as I went. And my sources I would trust. So if they think there's a possibility that Russia might slow that down, it's possible, right? Read my Bible. My 2 degrees are in religious philosophy and comparative religion. My master's degrees. I know what the Bible says, but I also know what the Sumerian text says. And I also know what it actually says versus the English translation, which is very different. There's a thing, either you know or you don't. Beliefs have nothing to do with it. A lot of you talked earlier about Brazil and Ecuador and Cuba. Actually, I think one of you mentioned Cuba, right? Yeah, but these people aren't Jews. I'd be more than happy to bless the Jews. They're in Ethiopia. I'd be more than happy to bless the European Jews that actually read the Torah. But I am not going to bless Zionists who are actually Khazars that don't follow the Torah, that follow the Talmud, which is Satanistic in your view, if you're a Christian, and the Kabbalah, and have no relationship whatsoever to the sons of Jacob. See, here's your confusion. If you read the Bible and you're confusing the sons of Jacob, who were Israel, with the created British protectorate in Palestine that is not Israel, I can't help you. The British protectorate in Palestine was created, what, 100 years ago? And it's a completely false creation. The Israel of the Bible were the children of Jacob, not a nation with land. That's the difference between Torah-following Jews and Ashkenazi Khazars that are Zionists. Torah-following Jews will tell you that they have no land until their Messiah returns. Zionists will tell you that they're entitled to the land, and they took it, and they're not even Jews. Got to know facts and history and who these people really are before you start telling me about the Bible. The only sons of Jacob that you can actually find are in Ethiopia today. And they're black. I love it when people come in here trying to give me a lecture and they have no idea who I am, with my master's degree in religious philosophy and comparative religion, bachelor's in philosophy. My other bachelor's is humanities, which is anthropology, sociology, psychology, and philosophy. Anyway, so this is the problem that we have. Yeah, I'm smoking a cigarette and drinking coffee. That's my religion. Anyway, and I don't mind. You know what? I'm Gen X. I grew up with cigarettes in the movie theaters, on the airplanes, an ashtray on the cart when you were going through the grocery store. Isn't that crazy? I'm not godless. I believe in a creator. And he never walked on this planet with us. And he doesn't have a name that you would know. Go back to the teachings. The creator of all things is above all things. Originally called the beyond, undescribable. If it walked on this planet and was so narcissistic that it demanded that you get on your knees and worship it, that's not a God. That's not a God. No God would have human frailties like narcissism and genocide. And if you actually read the actual translations instead of the Bibles that you've been handed for a couple 100 years, you'd understand that what you read in your Bible is not what the original Bible text says. I'm not godless, but I would never, ever, ever wish your God on anybody. They won't worship me, go kill them. They won't bow down to me, go kill them. I am your only, don't look at any other. That's narcissism and evil and heinous and genocidal. If that is the God that you worship, then you probably agree with the British protectorate in Palestine and the Zionists that are there, and are completely ignoring that the actual Torah-following Judeans don't want to be in the British protectorate in Palestine because they know that they're evil and they're not Jews. But that is fact versus belief. And I have said for many, 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 many years, beliefs are written the way they are because you have BE Then you have LIE, and then you have FS. And they want you to be the lie. Either know or don't know. I got no time for beliefs. I don't. Anyway, so we are hearing people saying that this is a crusade, that this is the uptick to Armageddon, and that it's going to be the apocalypse. Well, apocalypse means to reveal. I think it is an apocalypse. I think a lot of things are being revealed, like the psychopathy of religious zealots, the psychopathy of the Zionists in the British Protectorate of Palestine, and the psychopathy of the leadership in the United States, and the psychopathy of the leadership in Europe. I think it's absolutely true. Their crimes and their heinous behaviors and their attacks on children and women and people in general, their genocidal tendencies, their absolute psychopathic behavior is all being revealed. I think it is the time of apocalypse. Things are being revealed quite well. And if people were paying attention instead of being programmed and brainwashed, they would understand that the lies behind Christianity are being revealed as well. Of course, all they had to do was go back and look at Constantine in Constantinople and his takeover of the Catholic Church of Rome, and they'd understand that even from that time, from the time of Constantine, it was already compromised. And the teachings that came out of the first Council of Nicaea were Sabbatine Frankist inventions. It's the reason why they eliminated a lot of the texts, and they made sure that nobody had access to the originals. They translated them the way that they wanted them. But if you go back to the original, text, everybody says, "Oh, it's Hebraic." No, it's not. It's Babylonian text. It's not Hebrew. You can go back. They had a book that was published in 16 something, and it had these really amazing plates, that were used, and you could see all the languages. And this was before supposedly Napoleon found the Rosetta Stone. How did they print a book in the 1600s that had all the languages if they didn't know what they were? So we've been told today that nobody knew until Napoleon found the Rosetta Stone. Bullcrap. Not when they already had it in the books in 1600s. But we know for a fact that what they call Hebrew is actually Babylonian or Canaanite. But people refuse to hear that too, because that would interfere with their belief that these people that were right there were the tribes of Israel, which they weren't. They were not the sons of Jacob. The sons of Jacob got wiped out by the Amalek, who wore the brightly colored robes and mixed amongst them. That's the reason why you have Hovite and Levite. Hovite, Levite, and Hittite all mean of the snake. One is the clan of the snake, one is the tribe of the snake, and one is the people of the snake. I've talked about this many, many times. But anyway, the Amalek were identified in Africa for centuries by their brightly colored robes, the arrogance of them. Anyway, so we have this, I have listened to people like Hegseth and some of these others, and their hate is so venomous. You want to claim that you are a good person and that you're doing the right thing, but you do it on the basis of absolute hatred. That's not possible. That's not possible, right? The kingdom of Judah is on the slave coast of Africa. I've got a short video up here. I love this. I've got a video up here on YouTube. It's a short that shows you where the kingdom of Judah used to be and where Gog and Magog is right there on the maps. Jerusalem used to be right through the pass, just to the east of where the kingdom of Judah is, and it sit on the Kalahari Desert. That is where Jerusalem still is. Okay? So don't tell me about this crap up here around the Middle East, because this is all created for your benefit, for your belief system. I know where the kingdom of Judah was. It's on the slave coast of Africa. Gog and Magog, the capital city of Gog, are just north of it. I have the maps from previous to the 1800s on this channel for you to look at. But you wouldn't want to look at that, because that would prove that everything that you've been told about that area in the Middle East is a lie. Sorry. Belief versus knowledge. You can believe anything you want, but I prefer to know or not know. Anyway, so the hate right now is so venomous and evil that I just can't even relate to it. Hagee, have you seen? I never liked Hagee in the first place. He gave me the creeps a long, long time ago. But the things that Hagee and these evangelicals are saying right now is just disgusting. I cannot imagine that much hate in a Christian church. You know, and people are letting them do it. I mean, you would think the mass of the following within the church would say, oh, no, you can't talk like that in here. You can't say things like that in here. Just outright open hate inside this church should not ever be accepted. But they're not. So that'll tell you where they're at, right? It's beliefs versus knowledge. I'm sorry, man. Well, you know, actually his name wasn't Jesus. His name was Yeshua. And I would not hate the man whatsoever, because he was saying the same thing I am. These people are liars and fakes, and if you follow them, you are not following the Creator that's above all things. That's exactly what he said. I have no problems with Yeshua whatsoever. As a matter of fact, I have no problems with his teachings. You might want to look up the Book of Mary. You might look up the Book of Enoch. You know, there's this thing called the Apocrypha, but you don't want the version that was put out by the Christians. What you want to do is get the literal translation from the original language. And you would be surprised how much that Yeshua had in common with me. He told you that these people are liars. They're not who they say they are. He told you that this is not the kingdom. He told you that God is always within you, not to be found amongst other men. He told you that if you wanted to live righteously, you don't follow other men. You follow your heart and you pray. You don't follow other men. You don't go into a temple, right? Because the temple is you. Yet you don't pay any attention to your own book. Your book says that you are the temple and God is within you. The real God, the light, the one. Not the one that walked around in the Middle East butchering people. Right? There's the difference between me and them. I will not worship a God who walked around the Middle East butchering people. And that's what the Zionists worship. I won't worship any God because he wouldn't want me to. He would want me to connect to him and do the best I can to represent him here. Right? That's the way I figured. Because if he wanted me to worship him, then he's just as bad as any other man. The Bible, in specific, your friend Yeshua, said, God is within you. The real light, the real being, the real one is within you. You can't find him out here anywhere. Secondly, no man can lead him to you. And the temple is you, not a building. And no man should ever be between you and the Creator. And just by participating in a church, you are violating every tenet that Yeshua taught. You're the temple, not a building. No man should ever stand between you and the Creator. Those two alone. Anyway, so the state of Israel today is a state of Israel. It's a fake. It was created less than 100 years ago. The Bible, when it speaks of Israel, it speaks of a very specific group of people who had no state. Right? And you say again, the only ones that I know of are the Ethiopians. Those are the only remnant of the tribes of the sons of Jacob, which I prefer to use the word Jacob because that's very, very absolutely accurate. Rubbish. The only people who are left from the original tribes, the original sons of Jacob, are in Ethiopia. The people that you see in Israel today and the Judeans that you see in various places today, if they're not Arab or black, they cannot be sons of Jacob. Do you not understand this? Malachowski is his name, not Nahu. He stole that name from a Torah-following Jew that they killed in Poland. They are Zionists. They are European bloodlines. They are not and could not possibly be sons of Jacob. They follow the Talmud and the Kabbalah, not the Torah. Therefore, they cannot be Judeans. And because they are not from that area, they cannot be Semitic. They do not speak a Semitic language, and they do not have Semitic blood. So, don't know what to tell you. Facts versus beliefs. You know, there's not a Judean on the planet that would pick up a Talmud or a Kabbalah. The Talmud is Babylonian. And if you read the text, it's evil. It's okay to rape a girl because it's okay. And if you're not one of them, it's okay to do whatever you want. Lie, cheat, steal. And the Kabbalah, holy crap. Have you read it? You should. See, people want to get on here and argue with me about who is in the British Protectorate in Palestine and have no idea who they actually are. And then they also want to give me all of the beliefs that they have been programmed and indoctrinated with without actually knowing historical fact. And they're still trying to compare the state of Israel with the sons of Jacob. The sons of Jacob didn't have a state. And it wasn't a state. It was them. It was them themselves. They were Israel, not any land. They were Israel. In your own book, even with the bad translation. But the fact that these people are European bloodlines, they are not Semitic, and they do not follow the Torah. I'm talking about the Zionists. It means that they aren't Judeans. Now, they will hide behind Torah following Judeans, but they aren't. They follow the Talmud and the Kabbalah, which is a blasphemy to Torah following Judeans. And even the ones that you're most familiar with the white skin and their European heritage, are not Jacob's sons. The only place in the world that I can find one group that qualifies as being Semitic, from Africa, and old enough to be one of Jacob's sons, descendants of one of Jacob's sons, are the Ethiopians. That's the reason why they've been trying to kill them for almost 150 years now. They've been trying to wipe out the Ethiopians, more so since the 1950s. Just so happens when they were trying to create this place called the State of Israel. Created. It wasn't there. They tried to create it. So they went after the Ethiopians, the ones who actually have the oldest Bible on the planet and the oldest temple. Well, the oldest temple on the planet. But you probably didn't know that either. Like I said, I got no problems with Torah following Jews. I know some. They're great people. And they have nothing but contempt and dislike for the Zionists and the State of Israel. I have friends who are Muslim, and they have no problems with the Jews that actually follow the Torah. Let me say again, the highest population in the Arab states, other than in that little British protectorate that they call the State of Israel. They named the State of Israel in order to convince you of what it's not. The highest population concentration of Torah following Jews, other than in the fake State of Israel that was created by the Balfour Declaration, complete fabrication, is in Iran. Did you find that ironic? But they hate Jews. No, they don't. They've been living in peace with them in spite of being attacked so many times. They've been living at peace with them for a very, very long time. But you'd never hear that on the media either. Folks, I got to go, and I didn't mean to keep you guys 2 hours, but I love to answer. I love to answer questions and try to address the actual history and facts behind this stuff. And I don't mind people getting angry. I would rather them be angry and question the lies that they've been told and convinced to believe. And I don't care if they hate me. Don't hate me. Find out why I'm saying what I'm saying. Beliefs will kill you. That lie in the middle, man, that they've sold you all this time will kill you. It's better to know or not know. And of course, a lot of them will attack me on the religious thing, and completely unaware that my master's degrees are in comparative religion and religious philosophy. I mean, I'm not the person to have that argument with. And I do believe that there is a creator. You know, I'm Irish and native. I do believe, I guess, I shouldn't say the word believe, because I don't like to believe anything. I know there's a creator. I know there is something. What it is, we used to call it the beyond. It's beyond our understanding, right? But if it is something that walked amongst us and demanded fealty and worship and murder and genocide, how many of you would call that a god? I'd call that Bibi Netanyahu, Melikowski, right? I'm just saying, right? I'm just saying. Yes, there is a creator. I can guarantee you there is a creator. There is an entity that is beyond our understanding. A lot of people like to call it the light that we have was the gift from that creator. And does that creator interact with us? Maybe so. You know, through other entities like angels, maybe spirits. But you know, you got them evil spirits too. You got to be careful of them, right? But you know, a lot of people confuse the fact that I say that my religion is my coffee and my cigarettes, because that's the ceremony. That's my ceremony. I drink coffee and smoke cigarettes while I'm talking to you all. It's the only religion I have. But that they confuse the fact that I will not abide by a religion and all its indoctrination and all of its false beliefs and practices and ceremonies with the fact that I don't try to do the right thing by people, that I don't try to live an honest and clean and upright life. Forgive the cigarettes, but you know, hey, I went through a whole cycle. I started out on coffee and cigarettes. I went through drugs, drinking, chasing women, doing all kinds of crazy stuff, and I'm back to cigarettes and coffee. I think I've done pretty good. And rock and roll. I'm back to rock and roll too. But my lyrics have positive messages. You know, I'm trying to get people to think about things. Good example is Our Sanctuary. Think about the love and the connection between two people. Breakthrough. Somebody's having a problem and you're trying to reach them. They're right there in the same room with you and you can't get through to them. But you never left. They just didn't see you. Shadows on the Wall. Talking about you have to get out of the cave and look and see what's there if you really want to know. You can't rely on that flickering thing on the wall. You know, I did that song Midnight Dance. You know, find yourself and do what you need to do. Find yourself. You know, a lot of people confuse the fact that I don't go to church and I don't have a religion with me not believing. Well, I don't want to believe. I know. I can feel it. I have, for my whole life, felt a connection. You walk on the ground, you see the animals, you see what's around you. You cannot think for a minute that something didn't do something right. And it wasn't us. Of course, then I have the advantage of the Irish and the native teachings too, right? But when they try to tell me that there was a God that walked on this planet, demanded our fealty, and killed us if we wouldn't bow to it, and demanded genocide and sacrifice of other people for its benefit, that's not a God. Something passing it with technology, perhaps passing itself off as a God. And if they actually read the translations, they would find out that's more accurate. Doesn't mean the creator doesn't exist. Doesn't mean that light that gave us our life doesn't exist. It just means that what they talk about and what I'm talking about are two completely different things. Folks, I'm going to do a Conversations with Raven. I'm going to try to do it and record it and put it up because I want to have an audio file for my regular podcast channel over at Spreaker. So I'm going to record it and I'll put it up here, but then the audio will be available on my Spreaker channel. Okay. I appreciate y'all, and I wasn't expecting to be 2 hours, but I enjoy interacting with people. I really do, you know. And I don't, you know, we don't have to agree. You know, here's my real, real, real problem with Islam, Christianity, and Judaism as it's practiced by the Zionists. If I'm right and you all die, then according to their beliefs, you go to hell and I'm okay. If I'm a Christian and I'm right and you all die and you'll go to hell and I'm okay. If I'm a Muslim and I'm right, you all die, I won't ever have to see you again. You'll be in hell or wherever, destroyed, and I get to go on, right? Okay. So it doesn't matter what religion you are from. If you express the tolerance and love of your religion rather than the indoctrination and beliefs that they have given to you, if you express the tolerance and love, right, and the community of your religion, regardless of color, regardless of belief systems, regardless of religion. So if a Christian went out of the way to treat a person of Islam the way that they want to be treated and the way that their text says that they should be treated, and if a person of Islam treated Christians and Jews the way that their text says that they should treat people, and the people who are actual Torah following Jews treated Islam and Christianity the way that they're supposed to treat, you know, do unto your neighbors as you would do unto yourself. If all those religions would treat each other with the same respect, the same love, and the same recognitions that they were created by the same creator. You can disagree on the minor things, but if they all treated each other the way that their texts say that you should treat other people, we wouldn't have a conflict. We would all just wait until we were dead, and then we at being dead would know whether we were right or wrong. There would be no requirement for killing the others. There would be no requirement, and the fact that they express open hate and disregard for the lives of the others is a violation of their own tenets. Complete disregard for the lives of the people in Gaza. I cannot see how any Christian, based on their own tenets, could see what was going on in Gaza and not be sending, on their own tenets, their basis for faith is love for humanity and others. Yet not one of these big Christian organizations ever rallied or sent tons and tons of emails to Washington, D.C. to demand the genocide stop. Individuals did. Good for them. But, you know, my way of thinking is if you're part of an organization that claims Christian tenets, and that organization didn't say anything against the genocide of 600,000 people, then your organization is the problem, not you. Same thing with Islam. If you have a bunch of hateful leaders that are talking about disrespect for life and killing other people without cause, your problem is your organization, not you. I'll go back to what I said to start this part of the conversation. If you followed your tenets and you were a Torah following Jew, notice I ain't talking about Zionists that follow the Talmud and the Kabbalah. They don't believe any of that. They believe we are all animals and should be killed or enslaved. That's what Zionists believe. They follow the Talmud and the Kabbalah, and anyone who is not one of those should either be dead or enslaved. And if you haven't read the Talmud, do not put a comment in here, because I can tell you things out of the Talmud, like it's okay to rape a 6-year-old girl because she will heal and be a virgin again. That's in the Talmud. So before You start telling me about these people who are Zionists in the British Protectorate of Palestine and other parts of the world, you better know what you're talking about, because I've read it, and it's disgusting and heinous. And that's the reason why they have no problems with genocide and committing sodomy on little children that they take prisoner. Be careful. Zionism is a political institution. All right. Zionism is a political institution. Do you want to know where they come from? I can tell you where they come from if you don't know. They are Sabbatine Frankists. Okay. If you don't know what a Sabbatine Frankist is, they're the ones that believe that you do everything just the opposite of what the Bible says so that you can force your Messiah to come back. That's where these Zionists come from. You have to go back to Constantine. Okay? Dictionary, what dictionary? Google? Let me explain to you what a Zionist is. Historically, they came out of Phoenicia, right? They were the Ashkenazi, all right? They married into Constantine's bloodline. Then you end up with the first Ashkenazi prince. They took over Catholicism. That's the reason why Catholicism is the way it is. What do all these people have in common? Sodomizing kids, genocide, and usury. Comes out of Constantine's bloodline. The Habsburgs, the Merovingians, and Carolingians are all Constantine's bloodline. Do you realize that the Pope for 480 years was a Habsburg? I bet you don't. See, difference between knowledge and beliefs. So these people, Sabbatine Frankists, took over both Islam and Catholicism. That's the reason why you see the perversions, the sadism, the hedonism inside these groups. Then they went through Ukraine, passed themselves off as Bolsheviks, and went into Russia, came into Poland. All the same hedonism, all the same debauchery, all the same nastiness. And then they changed their name to Zionists. All right, after Bolshevism and during Bolshevism, you had two different groups. You had Zionists and then you had the Bolsheviks. They were the same people. The Zionists in England and New York are the ones who financed Stalin and Lenin. Okay, if you don't know that, then you aren't answering anything for me. So you got to know or don't know, don't believe. The Zionists financed Hitler even. Do you know the Zionists had an agreement with Hitler until he threw the bankers out of Germany? And then all of a sudden the Zionists are the ones that declared war on Hitler. You know, Hitler was transporting people to Palestine voluntarily at the Germans' expense because they wanted to leave. But you didn't know that, did you? So the Zionists started taking over in the late 1800s. And the interesting thing is, the Zionists don't include themselves in the Judean-Christian Islam war. They say that they will set up a war between the Judeans, the Christians, and the Muslims and destroy themselves. But not the Zionists. They separated themselves as a different group. They don't even consider themselves Judeans. You don't believe me? I don't care. Know or don't know. Look up the letters and the book by Albert Pike, and it explains it to you. But you never even heard of him if you don't know what I'm talking about. Anyway, I could go on with this history lesson. I could go on with this history lesson for hours, you all. But the fact of the matter is it starts with Constantine. If you want to know this in my podcasts, okay? If you want to know this in my podcasts, you just look up Raven Kiefer podcast and the Bloodlines. That Bloodlines podcast that I did goes from Constantine backwards and through to today and explains this to you. You know, if you want to know about the conversion of Sabbatine Frankists to Catholics, and then through to Bolsheviks and Zionists, the Zionists kind of predated the Bolsheviks because we know for a fact that the Zionists in New York and England educated, paid for, and financed Stalin and Lenin. The Bolsheviks that went in and took over Russia, so they predated. But the Zionist is just a new name for Sabbatine Frankist. And if you don't know what a Sabbatine Frankist is, if you look it up and find out what they believed, you will see exactly what you see in the Talmud and the Kabbalah. The Talmud is Babylonian, and so is the Kabbalah. Has nothing to do with Judaism. Anyway, I got things I need to do. And yeah, well, Constantine's wife, right, was an Ashkenaz. And they say that Constantine's son was the first Ashkenazi prince. Well, the Ashkenaz were Sabbatine Frankists, right? The Ashkenaz were Sabbatine Frankists. They supposedly converted to Islam and then converted to Christianity, but they were always Sabbatine Frankists. That's named after Sabbatine. But the Sabbatine Frankists were that group that went completely against anything that was Torah or religious at the time. They believed that the more evil and heinous and awful you were, that quicker that their God, and I don't know what God they worshipped, still don't. Some people say it's Baal, some people say it's Baal or Molodek. I have no clue, y'all, because it's lost in translation. It's lost in translation. We know that they came out of the Babylonian Talmudic practices, which means it's either Modoc, what's his name? Morlock. What the hell is his name? Damn it. It went out of my head. I'm thinking about something else now. But it's either Baal or Baal is not Satan. Satan doesn't exist. Okay? Satan doesn't exist. Let me explain this to you. The word is shatain. Okay? Shatain means those who oppose. So anybody who opposes the Pharisees or the Sadducees at the time were considered shatain. Right? You got to know the words. So, yes, I am absolutely 100% shatain. I am 100% opposed to the Sadducees and the Pharisees and the lies that they have continued. Right? Just like Lucifer. Lucifer means knowledge. If you go back to the original languages and see where it has been translated, all Lucifer means is enlightenment, knowledge. And of course they're against knowledge. Why wouldn't they be? Lucifer and Satan never existed until much, much later in the conversation. It's that simple. Shatain, or shatain, depending on how you want to pronounce it, means those who were opposed to the Sadducees and the Pharisees and their God, whatever their God was, most likely Baal. But yeah, shatain just means to oppose. So, some people say, well, you're a heretic. Well, if going against the tenets and the beliefs and the indoctrination and the lies of the churches makes me a heretic, I'll take that label. I'm fine with that. Because I know the history and I know the people and I know where it came from. I'm good with it. I'm absolutely 100% good with it. I would much rather be a heretic than be somebody who's following a false tenet that was created for your control. It's a lot easier on me. Just a lot easier on me. But yeah, it goes back to Constantine. It goes back before that to the Pharisees and the Sadducees, who were not what they said they were. That's the other thing I don't understand about the people who are Christians. It says right in their own book, these people are not what they claim to be. They say that they are and are not. Yet you still follow them and support them. Beyond my understanding, when it says it right there, even that part of the book was translated correctly, and it tells you these are not who they say they are. They claim that they are, and they are not. And people still follow them. I'll go back to what I said a little while ago. It says the temple is you and God is within you. You just need to reach out. It doesn't say anything about a building, a structured control system, or putting any. And it says, do not let one man get between you and the Creator. Yet they do it all day long with these preachers that lie to them constantly and don't even know what the original text said because they've never read it in anything other than Latin and English. Favor everybody, nothing missing, nothing broken, nothing absent from your lives that are needed. I am what I am and you are what you are, and that is enough. It should always be. And, I come to you on the level every time. I'm plumb with my words, and I even tell you when I don't know, like the Azerbaijan thing I can't even pronounce. I have no clue what's going on there, other than there have been intimations that the Russians might intervene. Intimations. That doesn't mean that it's true or not true. There's just intimations. But I'm honest enough to tell you when I don't know. And I just keep doing it. If there's something that happens over the weekend, I'll try to let you know tomorrow. And I'm doing a conversations with Raven about the Hidden Valley Mystics and a couple other things that I was asked about. I'll put it up later tonight. It'll probably air about 9 o'clock tonight or 10 o'clock tonight. That's Eastern Time, U.S. And I appreciate everybody. I even appreciate the people who disagree with me, and I'll tell you why. And I try to be as nice as I can, but when it's just absolute rot, it's really hard for me. I have heard it for 40 years, you all, 30 years. So I've heard this stuff for 30 years when all the evidence and all the documentation and all the findings are out there that prove this stuff to be absolutely wrong. And these people haven't heard it. All they've ever done is they've watched their television and they've gotten brainwashed. And they refuse to hear anything that they don't want to believe. And I understand cognitive dissonance. I do. Cognitive dissonance is terrible. But when your cognitive dissonance is risking the lives of hundreds of millions of people, I don't think that's a luxury that you should have. I should be allowed to break that cognitive dissonance and show you historical fact that shows that your beliefs aren't good. Oh, I'm lying? Well, let me explain something to you, Kimberly. The fact of the matter is the Bible that you read, if it's in English or Latin, is not accurate. That's the first problem that you have. The second one is if you don't know who Constantine was, and you don't know that the Ashkenazi took over Catholicism and created the Khazars, then you have no clue what you're talking about. My guess is you're probably one of the people who go online to just say things that are incorrect and try to discredit people, and more likely being paid to do it. But the fact of the matter is you have very distinct groups, and if you don't know who they are, then you have no idea what you're talking about. Okay? You have no idea what you're talking about because you have very distinct groups. You have Constantine and the Ashkenaz son that took over Catholicism. The Habsburgs were popes for 400 years. The Habsburgs, the awful, terrible, horrible Habsburgs that pretty much have destroyed Europe over and over and over again, created the banking industry. Do you realize that usury traveled with the Jews? It also traveled with the Jews. No. With the Sabbatine Frankists passing themselves off as Jews. But it also traveled with the priests. Do you think it's an accident that the same problem they had, spoken by Yeshua, by the way, they're money changers? They are not who they say they are. You think it's a coincidence that the money changers have moved with the Sabbatine Frankists and the Jesuits at the same time? Catholics. It's not a coincidence. It's the same people. Money changers. You will know them by their usury. Do you not know that phrase at all? So let me go back and explain to you. I have a bachelor's degree in comparative religion and religious philosophy. I have spent a long time studying history. You want real history? Go look at the maps I put up for you that they changed after the 1800s that show that the kingdom of Judah is on the slave coast of Africa along with Gog and Magog. While right now we have these crazy preachers out here trying to show you that Gog and Magog are India and Persia. No, Gog and Magog are on the slave coast of Africa and always were. So, if they're going to lie to you about that, like where the kingdom of Judah was and where Gog and Magog were, if they're going to lie to you about those two things that I can already prove they've lied to you about, you have to ask why and how much more are they lying to you about. It's that simple. They can give you any map that they want to give you, but the fact of the matter is Israel today, the state of Israel, was created less than 100 years ago by the Balfour Declaration. And if you don't understand the difference between the sons of Jacob being Israel as a people and the creation of a false state of Israel by contract and money, then I couldn't help you anyway. Just couldn't. Go back to what I said. The kingdom of Judah is on the slave coast of Africa. Always has been. Gog and Magog are just north of there, to the north and west, in the gap of the mountains going into what is now the Kalahari. That should, and if anybody tries to convince you of anything other than that particular set of facts, they've already lied to you. So why would you listen to them about anything else? Got to go, y'all. I got things I got to do. And sitting and arguing with people over their beliefs rather than their knowledge doesn't help anybody. And it's a waste of my time. You can't convince people that their beliefs that they've been sold for generations are lies created by the same people who are lying to them today. Just descendants of them people. I'm okay. They can have their beliefs as long as it doesn't risk my life or kill millions of others. Favor, y'all.